Thank you both. Thank you for all the help and support. And thank you so much for being here for this very important ceremony. My name's Bokushu, and I want to especially thank those who may not have been to one of these before. This may be your first time at a Fusatsu. So excellent that you're here, especially those in the Paths of the Precepts class. A warm welcome to anyone in the class. So, since there are people who may be new to this ceremony, I'll very briefly explain what has happened. We started with a verse of atonement, taking on all of the evil karma, all of the harm that's been done from beginningless time to now and into the future. Unfortunately, we can look forward to more harm being done. In fact, I'm sure it's being done as I speak. And then having taken on that harm and made it our own, we then called upon the energies that animate our school, the archetypes that are powerful in our tradition, to fortify us in the work that was to come. Having taken it on, we now need to go out into the world and be of benefit. And we make that vow in the 4 vows: to save all sentient beings, to master all dharmas, to tame our desires, and to attain the way. And this part is, and then we, so having done the 4 vows, now we have teisho, so that's what's happening now. And it is the custom in our talks to focus upon one of the grave precepts in these talks. And this evening what I would like to talk about is, I feel really bad because you're kind of glimpsing me through the tree. Would you like, if you'd like, there's a seat that might be more comfortable. You're very welcome. I want everyone to be comfortable. Atoning. Why make it a hardship? We're doing something important. Let's make it a little easier for ourselves. So the precept that I'd like to talk about is one that came to mind in my last talk when I was discussing the murder of Rene Good. And that's the precept of number 8, not squandering, not being stingy, not withholding the Dharma assets. Or as Maizumi Roshi said in a talk some years ago, not being begrudging. So begrudging or not grudgingly giving, but giving wholeheartedly perhaps might be one way of expressing it. And this precept has connections to other things, and I'd like to contextualize briefly. Among the paramitas, or the non-perfections as we might call them, the very first is dana paramita, giving. Generosity is how it's been translated. And within the precepts themselves there is a related one, the second, non-stealing. So, you know, sometimes non-stealing has been expressed as not being stingy. But that's not what we say in our temple. We say the second is not stealing, and that the 8th, which is what I'm talking about, is not being stingy or not sparing the Dharma assets. But you can see how generosity, stealing, and not being stingy are all related to each other. Different aspects of the same thing. So, what Maizumi also said in one talk was that, you know, this is not clinging. So what are we clinging to that we don't want to offer? But this is our tendency. Our human tendency is to manufacture an ego, build it up and protect it, and as part of the manufacturing process, our production lines call upon us to get things. And when we get things, we want to keep them. And when we don't have them, we're not happy. if we want them. Of course, if we have them and we don't want them, we're not happy with that either. So, we have both options in our lives, and I think many of us freely exercise the not being happy because we don't have and want, and the being unhappy because we do have and don't want. But the stinginess aspect is more about having and wanting, right? It's about having something and not wanting to offer that, not wanting to part with that, share that, out of a deluded view of a separate self. And I can't claim to be immune to these feelings, not at all, which makes me eminently qualified to speak about them. So, can we work constructively and compassionately with our own habits of clinging? I mean, it's very tempting to think that we can just tell ourselves, well, I won't cling. I'm done with it. Dust your hands off and say, I won't be stingy anymore. I'm going to just give till it doesn't hurt. Well, I don't think that's sincere. I don't think that that's really working constructively. That's actually not giving to ourselves. Let's admit that we have this tendency. And let's admit that maybe it had something to do with the fact that we are where we are. How did we happen to come here? I mean, look at this little temple. And look at the screen and see the boxes on it. I mean, this is a city of millions of people. How is it that so few are here atoning for this very basic human behavior, which we see exhibited left, right, and center? So I think if we have an honest relationship with ourselves, that is the beginning of giving, of not being stingy, to be honest and compassionate with the truth of our lives, which are not separate from all other lives. And certainly this tendency unifies all human life, doesn't it? Everything that's going on in the world is about me having mine and them not getting it. Them, whoever them are. Them, the immigrants, for example. There's a lot of work being done with our money to curtail the rights of people who are not supposed to have. And, whichever side of the question you're on, I think it's important to see it in the larger context of this human behavior of clinging, which is the main cause of suffering. The main cause of suffering is I am separate, this is mine, or should be mine. If it's not mine, I'm going to be unhappy about it, so you better give it to me. Or if it's mine and I don't want it, I'm going to be unhappy about having it, so you better take it from me. There's a tremendous amount of this in the world, and the tendency right now in high circles of government seems to be to flaunt this, to lean into this tendency of greed and separation, which is so toxic and unhelpful to our progress as a culture, as individuals, and as a world. So I'm talking about leaning into it as an expression of compassion. Leaning into it, yes, I'm greedy, yes, I cling, but I can work with those things to reduce them, rather than to promote them, to export them, to inflict them on other people, as a misguided attempt to build myself up and make myself feel better at their expense. So I think that's really an important step in not being stingy. And I want to talk a little bit about what is this phrase, Dharma assets, okay? So Dharma has a lot of words. There's small d, Dharma, everything. All phenomena, all things, all objects, all thoughts. Every single thing is part of Dharma. Then there's Dharma, big D, which is often translated as truth. Maizumi Roshi used that word. I'm not so keen on that word being the translation. We've seen a lot of arguing about what is the truth and manipulation of the truth, so-called truth, to advance particular objectives, which are often very harmful to society. I like reality more than truth. I know that reality can also be disputed, but it just has a different feeling for me. And I really want to underscore about all the precepts that this is about the feeling. What is the feeling of giving or not giving, for example? Try it out. Experiment. And of course you'll find on different days at different times that the feeling will be different. But if you have an intention, you can work with the feeling. So, Dharma is, of course, the teachings as well. And it's also expressed as the wheel of the law of cause and effect, which is, of course, extremely important when we're talking about the precepts. Didn't we start off with the verse of atonement? All evil karma ever committed by me since of old. Karma is the fruit of action. Thought is action. Words are actions. Physical actions are, of course, actions. So, what we think, say, and do has consequences, not just for whoever's around us, but for ourselves. That is the law of cause and effect. So Dharma has many meanings. But as I said, I prefer reality. And then what about this word assets? So not sparing the Dharma assets is the translation we use here. Do you know what an asset is? What is an asset? We tend to think of it as a thing of value, right? Something worth something. Something valuable and precious that we, of course, in our greed, want to keep. But in the, shall we say, cosmic balance sheet, what is the difference between an asset and a liability? Perhaps some of you know the important accounting fundamental: assets equals liability plus equity. So we have equities as well, don't we? We won't talk too much about those, but something is making all of this balance in the minds of people. But I don't think any of us knows what an asset is. We know what we like. We know what we want, or we think we want. We know what we would like to keep or get, and what we would like to lose. And we call what we would like to keep or get an asset, and what we would like to lose a liability. And our keeping the thing that we want and losing the thing that we don't want is what we mistakenly call an equity. Not bad, huh? If only every corporation in the country would have to write about that in its footnotes to the financial statements. That would be interesting to read. Well, how did we do in terms of recognizing what was truly of value? And how did we do in recognizing what is truly not of value? And how did we do in according the judgments that we made about the reality of those two things, the equity of those judgments? How did we do? Each of us can maintain our own balance sheet. And those balance sheets, the sum of those accounts, is on a cosmic scale. So do not doubt that what you are doing here and now is of great importance. This is the mother of all assets, is to recognize the harm that is being done in the world and to take it on. And to act skillfully and constructively as best we can while maintaining a certain attitude of compassion for our failings, which are inevitable. So the next thing that usually happens in these talks is that teisho goes into the commentaries on these precepts, and there are 3 commentaries for each of the 10 grave precepts. The first commentary is by Bodhidharma. Whoops. I think I'm a little boxy. Do you think I'm a little loud? I think I'm a little loud. Whatever. Self-nature is subtle and mysterious. In the genuine, all-pervading Dharma, not being stingy about a single thing is called the precept of not sparing the Dharma assets. So, this phrase, self-nature is subtle and mysterious, is Bodhidharma's intro to every one of his commentaries on the 10 great precepts. So what is self-nature? And why is it subtle and mysterious? Right now I'm studying something that the 6th ancestor said about self-nature. And I think I'll try to quote it. He said, "The mind ground not in error is the precept of self-nature. The mind ground undisturbed is the meditation of self-nature. The mind ground not ignorant is the wisdom of self-nature." And I'd like to add a 4th that he did not say. The mind ground not separate is the compassion of self-nature. And he said, because the awakening of self-nature is the pivot of my teaching, I do not even set up meditation, precepts, meditation, and wisdom, and compassion. So, for the person who kind of started the fundamental teaching of this after Shakyamuni, after Bodhidharma, who I'm quoting here, this self-nature and its awakening was of absolutely paramount importance. So as we actualize the precepts, can they be the awakening of our self-nature, the expression of that awakening? So not being stingy about a single thing. I think that's fairly straightforward, not being stingy, except what if you give somebody something they don't want? Involuntarily. You argue with them. You piss them off. Involuntarily or perhaps voluntarily. How do you know that that's not a Dharma asset? I'm not saying to piss people off deliberately, but let's not assume that when we get pissed off or someone else gets pissed off, that that's not an asset. Or when we love everything and everybody's giving us what we want, that that's an asset instead of a liability. There's somebody really important who's getting everything he wants and seems always to get what he wants. I don't think it's been an asset for him. Just my opinion. What do I know? Then we have Dogen, the Japanese founder of our school, who wrote one phrase, one verse. That is the 10,000 things and 100 grasses. One Dharma and realization. That is all Buddhas and ancestral teachers. Therefore, from the beginning, there has been no stinginess at all. One phrase, one verse. 10,000 things and 100 grasses. Relative and absolute are all expressions of dana paramita, generosity. There has been no stinginess at all from that perspective. But on an operational level, there is a lot of stinginess. So we can hold Dogen's lofty perspective but also take steps to alleviate our own suffering through a little more giving from ourselves. And then we have Zen Peacemaker order. Using all the ingredients of my life, this is the precept of not being stingy. And I think that's really what I've been talking about, is we don't know what's an asset and what's a liability. And we don't know how they balance out into what is called equity. So we can reflect on that. We're working on instinct, we're working on cultural conditioning, but I think we know which direction we can lean into to be of benefit and to do less harm and to suffer less. So I think I'll close by quoting from the Dhammapada. I think this verse is exactly the mechanism that we're talking about tonight, the mechanism that we are atoning for, that we are bowing to. The thought manifests as the word. The word manifests as the deed. The deed develops into habit. And the habit into character. So watch the thought and its ways with care. And let it spring from love. Born out of compassion, concern for all beings. As the shadow follows the body, so we think, so we become. Thank you.